Heads up, this is my third time re-editing and re-uploading this because Paramount blocked the original video. Twice. Despite the fact this was a review that appropriately used selective, short, and relevant footage solely for the purposes of illustrating the points being made in the voiceover. You know, pretty much the definition of fair use, not that Paramount gives a As a result, we're doing this with screenshots and gameplay footage instead now, which I'll at least try to make look interesting. The Knuckles TV series has dropped into Paramount Plus, and to say fan response has been divisive is putting it mildly, with people either loving or hating this show. Let's see which camp I'm in, why that is, and whether I would recommend this spin-off to any of you. For context, the Knuckles spin-off takes place in between Sonic's second and upcoming third movie, something it wastes no time in establishing during the first episode's opening moments. It's a revealing choice, as it tells us that Paramount see the Echidna's adventures as a possible jumping-on point for new fans in the hopes of selling more tickets to the Blue Blur's third theatrical release later this year. I am definitely not a newcomer, neither are my kids, but we are representative of the Sonic franchise's primary target audiences: children aged 11 and 9, and their 34-year-old autistic, nostalgia-fueled and generally burned out excuse for an adult father. We grabbed some sweets, popcorn and fizzy, sat ourselves down on the couch, and binged the entire 3-hour 6-episode series in one sitting. So, what did we think? I'm not going to lie, I had my fears. Friends had already warned me that Knuckles didn't have much screen time, with this mainly starring the human comic relief character, Wade. While I disagree that Knuckles didn't get enough screen time, I do agree that his motivations and reason for being here are tenuous at best. Listen carefully to this next bit, because Paramount sure as didn't. Now, this is a review of the series, not a recap, and this video is in no way a replacement for or substitute to sitting down and watching this series for yourself. But, to explain some of my concerns, I do have to recap a good chunk of that first episode and provide vital context. Following the second film's ending, Knuckles has agreed to live on Earth and protect the Master Emerald alongside Sonic and Tails. He's moved into the Wachowskis' home, but is evidently struggling to adjust to his new life and Earth's culture, causing tension and conflict. Weirdly, it's Sonic that talks to him, saying the fight's over, Robotnik's gone, they won and Knuckles should relax. People have had issues with this, claiming Sonic is too domesticated, but I grew up with a Sonic that would get arrogant, complacent, and potentially lazy, with those character flaws regularly landing him in trouble. I could see this version of Sonic having something of a Gohan arc, neglecting his training during peace times and overestimating his abilities, causing a significant loss at the start of movie 3, which acts as a wake-up call. In fact, put me down for a tenner, I am calling that. I just had a random thought. Imagine if Sega referenced that Sonic 2 The Game mod, where he gets fat. That would be a deep cut. A grounded and frustrated Knuckles calls out to the spirits of his elders for guidance, which summons Chief Pachacamac. You know what? So far so good. Knuckles feels aimless, out of place, and with his quest to find the Master Emerald complete, is lacking a sense of purpose. Pachacamac gives Knuckles a new mission, to take on an apprentice, train them as an Echidna warrior, and ensure that his tribe's culture, values, and legacy continue to live on. This is all good stuff, it aligns with what we know about these characters and makes sense, until Pachacamac elaborates. Somehow, training someone in the ways of the Echidna means turning Wade, the movie's human comic relief character, into a championship-level bowler? Even Knuckles is confused by it. From here, the show admittedly loses focus as it becomes hard to tell what's supposed to be the A-plot and what's just a B-story. We have two gun officers who go rogue and try to capture Knuckles on behalf of a big bad who's essentially the Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming. He's combining old Robotnik tech with Knuckles' quills to create super-powered weaponry. They're seemingly set up as the main antagonists, but then disappear for what feels like half of the show before turning back up right at the end. They put out a bounty on Wade and Knuckles, which causes Wade's ex-bowling partner and best friend, who just so happens to also be a bounty hunter, to come after Wade, with Knuckles refusing to help, because apparently Wade will only learn from this if he saves himself. We then have another villain in the form of Wade's estranged father, who abandoned him as a child. I will give the writers some credit. I thought they were going to follow a harmful trope that gives children all of the wrong messages, but thankfully it joins the Shazam movie in being one of the few pieces of media I've ever seen to say, sometimes your parents are just bad people and you're genuinely better off without them. You might be wondering what Knuckles is doing during all of this. For the most part, tagging along for the ride and learning everything about what it means to have a family and a home, and weirdly Judaism, after spending a single night at Wade's mum's house. Okay, I just realised how that sounds. Should we rewrite that? Leave it in. That's what she said. Alright, I'll stop. Which reminds me, we meet Wade's sister, Wanda, who is insufferable. She spends the entire show parading around as if she's better than Wade because, while he's a cop, she's an FBI agent. You know, like their lives are a game of top trumps. She outright stabs the dude with a fork, and later, during a hostage situation, refuses to let Wade save her because she's an FBI agent, she can save herself. Yeah, was not expecting an uncomfortable amount of time focusing on her resulting gross dislocated thumb in a children's television series. I did enjoy seeing her get some comeuppance. There's a scene where bounty hunters break into Wade's mum's house, and this FBI agent proves to be all bark and no bite as she hides behind a wooden chair, needing to be saved by Knuckles. Meanwhile, her mother takes on two guys at once in the kitchen. Okay, seriously, not written to sound like that, in a surprisingly decent fight scene that shows Mrs. Whipple can really handle herself. The show has a bizarre relationship with product placement. The packet of Lay's in shot here, yeah, fine, standard. The awkward shoehorning of Facebook Marketplace into dialogue, and how everyone has to specify that Wade was abandoned at a TK Maxx on the other hand? No, that's intrusive. My biggest fear came at the end of episode 1. Knuckles has just been defeated and kidnapped. Bear in mind, this is after friends had already told me that the echidna doesn't get much screen time, and we get this, oh no, I'm going to have to do something moment, where the performance was so flat that I didn't see Wade Whipple, I saw Adam Pally phoning it in. The original video played a short clip here so you could hear how flat the vocal delivery was and see how stilted the performance got in terms of both body language and facial expressions. Sadly, Paramount are and I can no longer do that, so trust me bro, it's bad will have to suffice. Going into episode 2, I feared that the entire series from that point might be the human characters trying to rescue Knuckles, and I was fully prepared to drop the show if that proved to be the case. Thankfully, it only takes about half an episode to get Knuckles back, and Adam's performance as Wade is actually pretty on point, with the ending of episode 1 proving to be nothing more than a blip. Here's the weird thing though, despite Knuckles being a bit of a mess structurally, me and the kids were thoroughly entertained throughout. Most of the jokes landed and got genuine laughs out of us. Yeah, even my 9-year-old could see the punchlines coming, such as Wade's fantasy about taking down the gun agents being entirely different to the reality, but we still chuckled when it was paid off because the execution was solid. The show isn't afraid to get silly, ridiculous, and ham it up. For example, episode 4 has Wade in a bounty hunter's cage, being pulled behind a limousine as if he's a circus attraction, with a big "We got him" sign. One of my kids blurted out, "That's just like those silly Americans," and I lost it howling with laughter. That same episode has Wade cosplaying as Knuckles in a rock opera featuring villains from Sonic 06 that was everything I didn't know I wanted. I loved every second of it. And you know what? That joke about Wade leaving the performance prematurely because he thinks he's understood the hidden message? Loved it. Going to give the writers that one, that was a neat subversion. Not sure how Wade managed to uppercut his way out of the cage like a Street Fighter character, or win a sword-fighting duel on a kid's bicycle against an opponent on a motorbike. Previously, the human characters had always been constrained to relatively realistic feats, helping to emphasize how extraordinary Sonic & Co.'s powers are. That rule's sadly broken a couple of times here, which doesn't bode well for Movie 3. Wade also becomes weirdly accomplished very quickly with little input or help from Knuckles, transitioning from being beaten by a Girl Scout to winning a championship in the span of a few days. I would chalk this up to the shortfalls of short-form storytelling, but they had 3 hours here. The same task has been better accomplished in shorter runtimes. All it needed was a montage! I did like seeing villains use Sonic and Knuckles tools against them, such as the warp rings. Makes sense some of those would have been recovered between the San Francisco and Siberia incidents. It was also interesting to see the writers toying with the idea of villains other than Robotnik, should Jim Carrey not come back for a future 4th film. And yeah, there was some pandering. They gave Knuckles his hat from the OVA, they did the end of level sign spin, twice. They stacked the soundtrack full of dad rock, and you know what? I'm a dad. Those are my jams, I am happy to be catered to, I liked the soundtrack. We got some war tidbits, such as tying Gun to Robotnik by calling back to Ivo being brought in by the government in the first movie. We met the person who had to organise that infamous wedding. We even get some potential setup for the 3rd film, with a potentially complacent Sonic and the possibility of Knuckles living at Wade's, rather than at Tom and Maddie's with Sonic and Tails. Tacky as it may sound, I actually bought into Wade and Knuckles' bond by the time the end credits rolled around, and I'd be up for seeing more of their double act. This was dumb. It was full of holes, it couldn't pick a direction, and I can see why people were disappointed with it. But you know what? Me and my kids were grinning ear to ear throughout the entire 3-hour binge-watching session. There was an intangible momentum and energy that carried it and kept us engaged. And sure, maybe that was just having good company, bonding time over a shared interest, and a lot of sugary snacks and drinks, but it was honestly a blast. I wouldn't subscribe to Paramount Plus solely to watch this, but if you happen to have the service anyway, and you have a couple of hours to kill, maybe some little ones to entertain, whack this on, don't take it too seriously, and just enjoy the ride. See, Paramount? Sometimes people recommend and give you free advertising for your show, if you're not stupid enough to block the video for no reason. Thanks again to my Patreon backers for their continued support. They are Crow, Tiny Jericho, Mr. Terry Chaos, Ducky Go, Francis T218, and Deliberator. See you again soon.